Okay, let's explore autistic history and the Autism Wars. This is part 71 of a series. So we're still looking at cure autism now and the massive effect they had on dominating the public conversation about autism back in the 90s. There were other autism organizations around that were doing a lot of things as well, but Cure Autism Now came in, and with their ability to connect with Hollywood celebrities and other places of media through John Shaystack and Portia Iverson's network, oh my gosh, what these people did in a short amount of time is what? And they excluded autistics in this process because we weren't compliant. And there seems to be a lot of magical thinking included here, especially when it comes to the genetics, or what they call gene hunters. At some point, they get labeled that by the other autism communities that don't believe in gene hunting or searching for that gene or set of genes to cure their children. They have a different belief system around autism. But I'm going to share with you this next two pieces. One is an article that ran in the Record of Hackensack, New Jersey on October 12th, 1997. And then there's another one I'm going to follow up with, which is going to be related to a book they mention in here. And we'll go from there. But yeah, they're going to hear some of this magical thinking in here, the hope that this is going to happen in time for their child by parents is so strong, but yeah. So this says Extra Help for Kids with Autism by Mary Amoroso. And it says here, Heidi Rogers and her husband were concerned when their son Andrew wasn't talking by the age of 18 months, but they chalked it up to the multiple ear infections he had. At 2 years of age, he still wasn't talking, and the Ridgefield Park couple raised the issue with Andrew's pediatrician, who recommended that the child be evaluated. Turned out, little Andrew had a lot of fluid in his ears, and so his hearing was indeed muffled. But a neurologist who assessed the boy told the Rogers that Andrew's lack of speech, lack of eye contact, and other behaviors like self-stimulatory jumping were consistent with a diagnosis of pervasive developmental disorder not otherwise specified. PDD is a newfangled terminology for a scary diagnosis for which there is no known cause or cure. Autism. And it says here in a quote, the biggest clue is, does a child attempt to gain the parent's attention and direct it to something else? Does the child say, hey, look at the water fountain over there? Even if it's only by gesture or facial expression, said Heidi. For some reason, autistic children don't engage in that interaction. The primary deficit in autism is social communication. The neurologist who diagnosed Andrew suggested that the Roger family seek out the government-subsidized early intervention program for disabled or developmentally delayed infants and toddlers. Because of the snafus and limited funding, it was several months before early intervention therapy was lined up for Andrew, and the 2 hours per week of government-funded therapy just didn't seem to be enough. The Rogers decided to pay privately for an additional 18 hours a week of therapy, which seems to be making a difference, and it cost them $300 a week. So the price is out of pocket, right? So prior to therapy, Andrew had typical autistic symptoms. When you spoke to him, he didn't seem to understand. And when you called his name, he didn't come running. Now, said Heidi, Andrew can respond to simple directions like sit down, come here, stand up, give me your foot so I can put your shoe on. He doesn't speak other than to say hi and more occasionally, but the Rogers think he's come a long way. There's a lot of words in this article, seems and believes, and they think he's come a long way. So we're using these parent anecdotes. In the process of finding the right therapy for Andrew, Heidi did a lot of research and discovered an organization called Cure Autism Now, founded 2 years ago by a film producer and a script writer from California whose little boy has autism. CAN is a highly activist organization. It notes that 1 in 500 children have some degree of autism. Ooh, they keep bringing up those numbers. They must... following mental retardation and cerebral palsy, but that scant government funding is devoted to autism research. This is the push. You see all this marketing, all this talk, all these stories, all these quotes. This is all the support and sway public opinion to support the autism legislations they have out in front and get support for it, legitimize it, and bring in more parents to help power their organization in activism while excluding autistics. And we're going to get into some of this magical thinking here coming up about this cure idea. So it says CAN is also sponsoring a conference on autism in the Sheraton New York Hotel in Manhattan on Saturday, whenever that was, offering the latest information on biomedical research, testing, and treatment. Among the speakers will be experts from the Seaver Autism Research Center at Mount Sinai, from the National Institutes of Health and Human Development. The cost is $75 per person, and then it gives a number for information to call. But here is where we start getting into some of that belief system. Heidi notes that there's a wide range of autistic functioning. Some autistic kids are completely locked in their own world, don't speak and engage in rhythmic, self-stimulating behavior. Some children with autism are very smart and verbal, but interact poorly with others. This is often referred to as Asperger's syndrome. We don't use that term anymore, but historically speaking, they did. So, which we've talked about in this column. Some autistic kids are hyperactive or obsessive compulsive, and they're definitely those comorbidities for a lot of us. There are a lot. Here we go. Here's the belief system. There are a lot of stories of spontaneous recovery or recovery after intensive therapy, Heidi said. The book that's an inspiration to a lot of families is Let Me Hear Your Voice by Catherine Morris, who had not one but 2 children with autism who were mainstreamed after intensive therapy. But that's another mystery. Why do some kids recover while others don't? She hopes and prays and works to make sure that Andrew recovers. They sold this person some giant hope, didn't they? And that book by Catherine Morris is ABA push all the way. And it will even mention Bridget Taylor, who is connected to ABA in Autistic History from, I think, pretty much the beginning. But we'll get to that going forward. We're going to jump into more deeply the controversies around ABA and how it took over as the only autism treatment covered by insurance here in the United States of America. We are leading up to that, but that's coming up in a different era. Let's talk about this a bit more in the next video. Thank you for exploring autistic history with me.